All right, so if you guys have been following the single board community and you follow radxa on Twitter, radxa announced a brand new RK3688 chip exclusively for the ARM-based series single board computers. Now, there's very little documentation on this. radxa is not the manufacturer of the RK3688. However, that would be made by Rockchip. So this is a brand new Rockchip RK3688. Now, there isn't much more information on this other than what I have to show you guys today. And the cool thing about this is if you look very closely at this architecture, this is going to be their brand new flagship for Rockchip. So Rats is not the only company that has to produce a single board computer for this. However, they are taunting and hinting at making a Rock 6 SBC. Now, if you look very closely at the architecture of this chip, and for those of you who've been familiar with some of the other Rock chips that have come out, the last one was what the Banana Pi is using on their latest chip. Also, the Orange Pi 5, they are using the RK3588, and that is using a big little architecture on that chip, boasting 1.8 on the base frequency for the first 4 cores and 2.4 gigahertz on the second 4. However, if you look at this chip, and this is all we have available on it, you can see that this is a full core chip. What this means is if you guys are familiar with Raspberry Pi 4s, Pi 5s, even though they use Broadcom, those chips can be overclocked. You have 4 cores working cohesively with one another. With big little technology, and we kind of talked a little bit about this in my live stream a few days ago. Big Little technology is a self-optimizing interface or self-optimizing technology built into the cores, so that way you don't have to overclock. That way none of the cores will overheat. And in some cases, depending upon what type of chip you use, they work together to you typically have the little cores doing the smaller processes, and then if you're in the emulation, video processing, and things of that nature, the bigger cores are what's doing the bulk of the work. So you typically don't have all 8, for example, like the RK3588 working in tandem together all at once. However, again, we don't have much detail on this, and you guys are currently looking at the full translation on this chip. It's a Cortex A7 something something full core with the ARM 9.3 instruction set. Now, I was looking a little bit about the information, and we'll wait until we get some more information about this chip. And so it's still going to give us LPDDR4 or 5 memory, so it's going to be pretty fast. And then, of course, on the chip itself, again, we don't have much information, but what I can tell you is if it is an 8-core based processor, maybe even 10, this would trump the Raspberry Pi 5. Now, in terms of performance, obviously the Raspberry Pi Foundation, Raspberry community has more support. That's something that won't be argued about. Now, in terms of performance and power, this is going to be more powerful than a Raspberry Pi 5. Looking at the specs, now, for example, even if this is a 8-core processor, so let's go ahead and take a look at, we're going to take a look here at with the architectural breakdown of just to kind of give you guys a little update here and bring you up to speed. These are 2 chips in the retro gaming community. Obviously, you guys are familiar with the RK3588. There's been a number of companies using this, again, like the Orange Pi 5. You have the Rock 5C, for example, uses the RK3588S. And then over here on the left, we have the smaller chip over here. We talked a little bit about this one. This is the one that's inside the RK1-Up Marvel vs. Capcom 2 cabinet. It's using the RK3399. Has 6 cores, but the base frequency using 4 cores is at 1.5 gigahertz with a turbo frequency of 2.0 gigahertz. And then, of course, on the Orange Pi 5 RK3588, for example, you have 4 cores operating at a base frequency of 1.8, and then the other 4 cores are operating at 2.4 gigahertz. So, again, what I'm thinking is that even if they decide to go with 8 cores, let's say all operating at 2.4 gigahertz, or let's say maybe it's 10 cores all operating at 2.4, heck, maybe even 3 gigahertz. Again, this is going to trump a lot of other single board computers that are out there. Now, there have been a few other videos comparing the RK3588, like the Orange Pi 5 and the Rock Pi 5S, to how it would compare to some of the other x86 based boards that are out there. Like right now, radxa has the X4 which is boasting about 3 gigahertz or so forth. So this is kind of identical. The RK3588, it's like the counterpart ARM-based version of an x86-based processor. And again, I'm not speaking so much from development and what it can run. I'm just talking about in terms of numbers and what it pretty much can do. But there's a lot to be looked forward to when this video, when this chip does come out. We will have more specs. Make sure you guys like this video. Also hit the notification bell because I will get you updated as soon as we get some more realistic information about what this chip will be able to provide. Now, it is the cool thing is because again, I'm thinking it's either going to be 8 at maybe 2.4, which would be really good. So we were not going to be messing around any further than dealing with big little architecture. So we're going to get a little bit better performance in terms of emulation. I would like to hope, or if it's a 10 core based ARM based board, then we're going to get a heck of a lot of power, even if it was operating at 2.4. Now, really interested to see how that would affect emulation because again, most emulators only use 2 or 4 cores. They don't use 6, they don't use 8, don't use 9, they don't use 10. Unless maybe you're using something like PlayStation 3. I haven't looked at that breakdown, but I can tell you that like Dreamcast, like the Flycast emulators, Redream, the Ether emulators, for example, they all require or use about 4 cores for emulation. And so even if you were using something like, let's say the RK3688, that's why some of you guys were having issues with your Marvel vs. Capcom 2 cabinets, is because this architecture isn't really made for gaming. It is made more or less for multitasking. However, the RK3588, because it boasts having 4 ARM cores at 2.4 gigahertz, this actually performs a lot better even in a Linux environment or even on Android environment compared to the Raspberry Pi 5 running PlayStation 2 emulation and also Wii emulation. I've done side-by-side tests. I have videos of that here on the channel if you guys want to see a side-by-side comparison of how this chip or the RK3588 compares to the Raspberry Pi 5. I will have some more information on that, but again, wanted to keep you guys updated. This is some great news. We do see that the SBC community is still slowly growing. We do know a lot of you who are using this for retro gaming are still going with x86, but we can't wait to see exactly what this new technology is going to offer and exactly what gigahertz performance is this RK3688 going to boast. And the cool thing is, again, it will not be using big little based upon the information that we are currently looking at. It's going to be very identical to a Raspberry Pi 4 or 5 and some of the other Rockchips that are out there that's not using that self-optimizing layout or architecture. Now, there's not too many videos on that. In fact, it took me a while to kind of figure out exactly how big little does break down. I'll probably post that video, but it's a really interesting concept. In fact, when I was running, I think I was doing an overclock or I was playing PlayStation 2 emulation, you could see that none of the cores are maxed out. In fact, on the RK3588 Orange Pi 5, I think it got all the way up to like 60 or 67 usage for each individual chip, but none of them got up to 70, 80, 90, or even 100. And again, once one core looked like it was about to be maxed out, it then allocated those additional processes over to another core. So it's a pretty cool thing. I'll probably show you guys that breakdown in terms of how it works. I couldn't find many videos on it really explaining it or actually showing a real working use case scenario with that, but I think that might be a fun video. But for now, I will catch you guys later. Let me know what your thoughts are about this particular chip. Are you excited for it? And are you planning on upgrading to this new typical architecture? And again, we always love to use the S word here. This chip in the board will not mean anything unless it has support. So I will catch you guys later. Peace out. Bye-bye.